Thanks for that wonderful introduction we had, getting to know each other before we embark on Citizen Climate Lobby Canada's climate advocate training. So it's Thursday, May 23rd. So we've all already done our welcome and introductions, and I just loved hearing the land acknowledgements from across Canada, and just I could feel your heart in that land acknowledgements that you were giving as well. It's really beautiful. So our agenda tonight will be an overview of Citizens Climate Lobby, our mission, values, and the CCL way, carbon pricing in Canada, and planning your lobby meeting and questions and practice time. And this is all in preparation for our event, Dream No Small Dreams. So I thought I would start by orienting you to the website. This image is about to be updated. We have finalized our guest speakers. Not only do we have Catherine McKenna, we also have Senator Rosa Galvez is coming, probably over the net though. And we have the Canadian Association of Physicians for the Environment will be there as well. So it's going to be jam-packed. So one of the things people were asking about tonight was, um, how, prepping. So we have this booklet and I wanted to orient you to it. It's still in draft mode. It'll be ready probably by Monday because I have to send it to the printer. So when we lobby, we have what are called lobbying asks. And these are them. And we'll get into this at the end. But what's really cool is we have laser talks for all of the lobbying asks that we have. So, and they're just like 300-word descriptions of the various talking points. And we hope that everyone should read the first 3 laser talks. But then each of you will probably focus in on 1 or 2 aspects that you want to talk to your parliamentarian about. So some of you might want to talk about carbon border adjustment mechanisms, and you can click on this and you can go right to carbon border adjustment mechanisms. So anyways, the booklet itself is going to be very user-friendly online to help you prepare for your lobbying. And then we have this massive 70, 80-page booklet of all the updated laser talks as well that will be ready probably by midweek next week. The booklet will be printed for the conference, but the big laser talk booklet will not. So this is just, to help you get ready. And we will practice a little bit tonight. So yeah, I'm getting very excited for the conference on Parliament Hill. Our solution to climate change is democracy. So thank you for being on our team. Our learning objectives tonight are to absorb our history, mission, culture, unique niche, our one and only rule, the values, and our 5 levers of political will. Articulate the benefits of carbon pricing and border carbon adjustments, and I'll learn how to be effective citizen lobbyist. We were founded in 2007. We have over 21,000 supporters outside the United States, just under 7,000 supporters in Canada. And we have 50 countries with 50 countries with active chapters. And those are all the blue dots here. Canada joined in 2010 and Australia and Sweden in 2013. Our founder was Marshall Saunders. I wish you could have met him. He was an incredible human being. I met him about 14 years ago, right about, well, it was mid-June. So 14 years ago, mid-June. He just hummed on a whole new level, and incredibly generous human being. And he believed in all of us. And he realized that ordinary people like me would have to organize and educate ourselves and give up our hopelessness and gain the skills to be effective with our government. He's just a beautiful man. He passed away in 2019. I miss him. Thank you for being part of his dream. So our mission at Citizens Climate Lobby since the very beginning has been to build the political will for a livable world. And how we do that is we empower people to have breakthroughs in the exercising of their personal and political power. Like was mentioned by Kathy, she said her doctor could never do what she's about to do right now. Yeah, you are incredibly powerful. You could say the right thing at the right time to the right person and make a difference. Or you could say something and never know that you made a difference, but you made a difference. And people are watching you. And I promise you, 10 years from now, somebody's going to come up to you and say, you know, when you were doing that, I was watching you and I was admiring you. I've had that happen to me a few times in my life. So I'm pretty sure that's going to happen to all of you as you do this work because you are remarkable. And when you speak to politicians, you are doing something that we say only about 1 in 1,000 people who ever connect with us actually ever do. So thank you for being that 1 in 1,000. You can create huge magic. So we occupy a very unique niche in the environmental movement. We train and support volunteers organized by ridings or constituencies, if you're not used to that very Canadian term, ridings, to lobby their parliamentarians and build political will for improvements to the Greenhouse Gas Pollution Pricing Act. And we've been meeting and providing our volunteers with action since 2010. Now, as mentioned earlier by Keith, yeah, we have a really awesome carbon pricing policy in Canada where for the consumer component, the people get the money back. And yes, Catherine McKenna and Senator Grant Mitchell and various other politicians have said we were the ones that empowered them to do it. So it was our work. So now we have this Greenhouse Gas Pollution Pricing Act. So we're trying to make it better, and we want to, and where it's not strong enough, we're working on other policies to make our overall regulations because of greenhouse gas pollution, especially from fossil fuels here in Canada, much stronger. So we can, get them out of our fossil fuels out of our economy in a fair, fast, and forever way of doing things. Yeah, and we met monthly every month since September 2010 and given actions every month like clockwork for almost 14 years now. And the really cool thing about it is it's like a soap opera. If you walk away from it for a little bit, you can come back and you know exactly what we're doing. We are lobbying our parliamentarians for improvements to the regulations for greenhouse gas pollution. That's pretty simple. So we have one rule and one rule only, and that's respect, admiration, and gratitude for service. We're literally known as the nice climate group on Parliament Hill. We've been told that. It really, and I'll never forget being in a lobby session with Keith in 2016. We were lobbying an MP from Northern Alberta, very much in the oil sands territory, but he was being very gracious with us, very open with us, but he was also chiding us a bit and trying to get our goats, like trying to get us to argue. And then finally Keith broke out and said, "We're trained not to argue." And the whole room burst out laughing. So it's, yeah, respect, admiration, and gratitude for service. We're trying to find common ground to help, make sure we have a livable planet. And we also recognize that there are many ways of being an advocate, an activist, or a protester. We very much lean on that advocate side of, the spectrum of being a climate action person. And we recognize that all of those actions are needed. And we just occupy our niche, which is more the advocacy and building relationships aspect. I'm going to list our values, and then as I list them, if anyone speaks out to you at the end, I'd like for you to share which of these values speak out to you after I get through it. So yes, we are highly focused on carbon pricing and particularly protecting and making better the Greenhouse Gas Pollution Pricing Act, and then focusing on policies that will make that policy even stronger and get carbon fossil fuels out of our economy in a very measured way, mostly focusing on pollution pricing and making it so the money just shifts away from fossil fuels. Yes, we're highly focused on that. Focus is our superpower. Imagine we did all of our work from 2010 to 2018 with zero paid staff, and we lobbied almost 800 times and had 13 events on Parliament Hill. But to do that, to keep everybody in their lane, we had to be highly focused, which was great. But we also have integrity. We are very open to other ideas on how to reduce emissions. We do recognize that the Greenhouse Gas Pollution Pricing Act, as it is written right now, is not strong enough. That's why we lobby for a cap on emissions. That's why we lobby for clean electricity regulations. That's why we are lobbying for rules for the financial institutions, and we lobby for a couple other things like CBAMs and regulations for fossil fuel advertising. We do our homework, and we would support anything that gets fossil fuel emissions out of our economy in a fair, fast, and forever way. We definitely are optimistic, and I can really feel it on the call tonight. Like, oh my, I'm feeling it inside of me just listening to all of you. Yeah, we are ruthlessly optimistic. We are stubbornly optimistic. We have strong opinions that are lightly held. Like, we know that we can solve this problem. Everybody on this call knows we can do this. We've just got to educate ourselves, educate each other, and just keep chipping away at it. Totally embrace diversity. It's I work in work in many countries across the planet. I loved the land acknowledgements at the beginning of this. I know all of you are doing this for the greater good. None of you are going to get money. I know, we are so lucky we're able to do this work because a lot of people don't have the time. And I know that we're doing this to make a better world for all. And yeah, and so thank you for that. Definitely personal power is the energy that drives us. I cannot stress how incredible it is to watch people lobby. And I'm so excited to go to Ottawa to see people and feel that buzz, because you will feel it from each other. And when you lobby in your own home ridings back home, you'll feel change happen. It is amazing. So that personal power really drives us. Relationships are at the core of what we do. We are a transformational organization. Yes, we do digital campaigns, but most of our work is like building that is towards building that relationship with our community, with each other, and with especially our parliamentarians. And yeah, we are nonpartisan, totally. Like, that's key. This is a nonpartisan issue. We've had great conversations with all different stripes of politicians on both sides of the border in Canada and the United States. I've had some of the best discussions with Republicans in the United States, actually. It's been really fascinating. It's so cool when you go peek behind that curtain. And I've had some really great conversations with and relationships with the Conservatives here in Canada and all politicians. So these are our values. And if anyone would like to share which value spoke to them, we'll take a couple minutes to do that. But yeah, please go ahead. Just jump right in, unmute and talk.
For me, I guess it's optimism. It's just, I think this is such a critical issue, and I don't want to spend my time feeling defeated or, like it's not possible. It just has to be, and I think us coming together will make a big difference.
Yep, community of optimists could make a huge difference. Absolutely. Anyone else?
I will second that as well. Optimism, I think, is what speak to me, because it's the reason why I joined CCL, because I wanted to connect with the group to feel more optimistic and believe in my personal power. And I would say that another one maybe that resonate with me is focus, because I think that's maybe gonna be my challenge, because I also work in the field and sometimes I feel like I want to do everything and be everywhere. So I think focus is another one that I'll have to keep on my radar.
Yeah, focus is my favorite too, because I can be the person who's wants to be everywhere as well. I have to watch that as well. So focus really ropes me in. I totally hear you on that, Melissa. Renee.
Sorry, there's a baby back here. I just want to echo what Melissa and Janae said, that optimism is initially what brought me, because as someone who's online maybe too much, there's a lot of like doom and gloom, right? And it's hard to find the positive of what's happening, especially with, you know, what's reported. It's always that stuff. So what really drew me in meeting Kathy and people in person, nobody was like, what are you doing having a kid with climate change? Or what do you do? Like, I didn't feel judged. I felt like people were like, this is why we're here. Hey, buddy. And really empowered that we were all there together. And I left the conference just feeling like very inspired by everybody else. And just that there are people who know about like the emergency we're in, but aren't like backing down, right? So I feel very inspired by all of you and by everyone at the conference. And just similarly also the focus, because it just feels like an insurmountable obstacle sometimes. And to have people who say, well, this is where we're putting our energy and this is who we're talking to, and to hear the successes that CCL's had in the past, it just shows you why we're doing this. So just similar, just to say that, echoing what other people have shared as well.
That was beautiful. Thank you.
And
Anyone
can I
else?
jump in too?
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, okay. Because no, like personal power and relationships really speak to me, because I read so much about this and talk about it, but like we're taking action. We're doing something. And so having that power and just the relationships I've built with my fellow CCL volunteers, even it's created like a real community, because it's hard to do it by yourself, but as a team, I think, like you said, we can do like amazing things. So it's not just like our relationship building with politicians, it's with each other that is really powerful.
Got a heart there. Did you see that heart? You got a heart.
That's great.
Anybody else?
Yeah,
Well,
I'll just say focus is the thing for, I, yeah, I tend to focus too much on things maybe, but that to me is what I like about CCL, is there's a particular target and particular method of doing things, and just go for it. So, and then integrity and optimism, diversity, all the rest. But yeah, focus is the thing for me.
wonderful. Thank you. Anybody else? I think we got everybody but Mary Blake. And if you don't have to, if you don't want to. Go ahead.
I don't want to take up too much time, but yeah, I think the one that really speaks to me is the personal power, because yeah, I remember feeling like I didn't know what I was doing, and I didn't think that I was a particularly fit person to meet with my MP, and then with some prodding from Kathy, I went ahead and did that anyway, and that was really empowering. And then I started a chapter here in London back in 2015, and it was also really exciting for me to watch people from the community who had never lobbied before, and maybe didn't think that that was something that they could do, come to a meeting and then say, wow, that was really awesome. We just had such a good conversation. And so the personal power part, I think, is what really speaks to me.
Yeah, you epitomized that in 2015. Mary Blake got us a meeting with the Conservative Environmental Caucus. The entire caucus. There was 8 of them and about 10 of us in 2015.
That was a fun meeting.
That was a fun meeting. It was great. Like, yeah, you never know. She just made it happen. So it was great. And I think you speaking, Chantal speaking, and 16-year-old Vanessa giving it to them was awesome. Like these three people, like 3 young women just going toe to toe with it in a good way, not like a aggressive way, but you know, with truth and facts and with the conservatives. It was great. It was the most memorable moment. Okay, fantastic. All right, here we go. We're doing the carbon pricing thing for about the next 27 minutes or so. So we found that just teaching people about carbon fee and dividend or climate income wasn't good enough. We had to give you like the whole scaffold of how the fact that how carbon pricing can be, how many ways it can be enacted. All right, so we listed them from least transparent to most transparent. So the least transparent is the status quo. Over 75% of emissions on this planet are greenhouse gas emissions are still not priced, but we're paying for it. We're going to pay for it big time this summer. Between the fires and the hurricanes that are coming, I mean, that's going to cost us through our taxes, through our insurance rates, and some people are going to lose lives and livelihoods. I mean, we are paying for this pollution that we have. So another way of pricing carbon pollution is to subsidize clean energy. And you're like, what? I'm like, anytime the government takes our money and puts it into something, that's a tax. All right. So green subsidies are a price pollution. And the IMF came out with a report, the International Monetary Fund came out with a report in the fall of 2023 that said if governments try to subsidize their way out of this very expensive problem, they risk a debt crisis. We cannot subsidize our way out of this. We do need green subsidy. We do need clean subsidies. But they have to be highly, targeted and stuff like that, and used in complementary ways to pricing pollution. Regulation is another way to price pollution, like direct regulations, like getting rid of coal-fired power plants by having regulations on, fuel efficiencies, like having regulations when the last new fossil fuel car can be sold in Canada. Those regulations are important, definitely help move things along. And yeah, we wouldn't be off coal in most of Canada if it wasn't for the coal regulations. Those are really important. There's cap and trade. Quebec has cap and trade. California has cap and trade. California is decarbonizing. So is Quebec. Like, this is an important thing to do. Cap and trade. Put a cap on emissions, trade, and don't really like the offsets component of that. I won't get into that, but putting a cap on emissions and then letting companies trade is very important. It's why the European Union is now at its lowest emissions since 60 years. It's been 60 years. They're at their lowest, and the UK is at their lowest emissions in like 90 years. They did all that through cap and trade. Now, a global cap and trade is very difficult to imagine because it's just not possible. There's too many corrupt governments, and it takes a lot of boots on the ground and enforcement and eyes monitoring it to have a global cap and trade system. Cap and trade has been effective, and it's important in decarbonizing our economy. Then there are carbon taxes, and there are places in the world where the governments have put a fee on fossil fuel pollution and takes that money and puts it into program. What comes to mind is the country of Costa Rica. Instead of like giving a rebate back to the citizens in Costa Rica, they've rebuilt the forests of Costa Rica, in part by using the money from the fossil fuel taxes. And Costa Rica is, I think, the only Latin American country that's shown significant growth in their forests over the last 30 years. So, but a country like Canada, where we're so diverse in our needs and our demographics, it's hard to imagine our government being able to have a carbon tax program that will make everybody happy. Because there's just we know that there's a lot of differences. So anyway, so carbon taxes can also, if they're not enacted right, can actually slow down the economy. So they have to be done very carefully. There's places where they work. Very difficult to imagine in a country like Canada with all the diverse needs. There's cap and dividend, is where the country puts a cap on emissions, and then if the companies go over that, they collect that money and they give it back to the people. That's to be distinguished from just a straight fee on carbon pollution and then giving the money back to the people, which is what we have within the Greenhouse Gas Pollution Pricing Act. You know, when you look at all those, except for the status quo, we will be using all of these methodologies to get off of carbon, off of fossil fuels, you know, in various ways. So this is the backstop policy in Canada and all provinces, except for Quebec and BC. The territories, Northwest Territories has their own carbon pricing policy. Yukon and Nunavut, they have the backstop policy, but again, they distribute it in differently in the territories, in those two territories. They distribute through the province, not through the government. So anyways, what we have what we have in Canada is an incrementally rising price on carbon pollution starting in 2018, going all at $15 a ton, going all the way up to $180 a ton by 2030. All of the proceeds, almost all of the proceeds, are given back to the people. 10% goes to the MUSH, which is municipalities, universities, schools and hospitals, small and medium-sized enterprises and Indigenous communities. But 90% of it goes back to us equally, regardless of income, regardless of carbon footprint. And what a true climate income policy would have is also border carbon adjustments, also known as carbon border adjustment mechanisms, also known as border tariffs, but we never say the word tariff because tariff is a 4-letter word. So what a carbon tariff is if a country was trading with Canada that didn't have a carbon price, there would be a tax or a tariff as that high carbon commodity crossed the border. So this incrementally rising price on carbon pollution allows households, industries, and businesses to plan over time as we transition our economy, so we don't shock the economy. Giving the money back to the people helps build political will, helps us get that price up really high. Also, right now, a lot of people are relying on it during this affordability crisis that we're in. This is an affordability measure as well, giving the money back to the people. And lastly, the carbon border adjustments will encourage the rest of the planet to price pollution, and do know that a common but differentiated responsibilities are being considered as the world plans for border carbon adjustment mechanisms to be coming into play in the next 5 to 10 years. And by that, I mean Africa, Latin America will pay a much lower rate than the northern countries of the global north. And here it is. Did I get that one right? Yep. Okay, I got the right slide. Okay, so this is our backstop policy. So instead of having border carbon adjustment mechanisms or CBAMs for our heavy industry, we have what's called output-based pricing. But we do for the consumer and small and medium-sized enterprises, we have fuel consumption and heating fuel price on pollution. We don't pay that price directly. It's embedded into the cost of everything. As for the heavy industries, these are the heavy industries like chemistry, chemical factories, fertilizers, steel, cement, plastics, all the big industries. They have they pay a portion of the fuel price, and only it's all based on a standard. It's kind of like cap and trade without the trading. So basically, if they go over this standard, then they have to start paying just a portion of the fuel price. It's not that stringent, and if it was made stronger, or if we could get rid of it and just have border carbon adjustment mechanisms, it could really ratchet down carbon emissions here in Canada. So right over here, right now the price is $80 a ton. Currently, that accounts for 17 cents per liter on gasoline, and gasoline right now is about $1.60 a liter, goes up about 3 cents every year when the $15 a ton price goes up. But note that between January 2024 and April 2024, gasoline prices rose 40 cents. Over 40 cents. So this is the wildly fluctuating gasoline prices play havoc on our economy. And imagine a world where we no longer have to deal with that. That will be awesome. And these are the tiny little details in here. 90% is returning to households, 10% to municipalities, universities, schools, and hospitals. We know 80% of households come out ahead, and rural and remote households are to now get a 20% top up, but I do believe it is still being stalled so I don't think they're getting it yet because it's still being stalled in committee by guess which party anyways. And Canadian farms have their own fee and rebate system for the fuels that qualify, so they don't even pay this. So that's the overview of our backstop. That's as wonky as it gets, and it's all in the laser talks too. So any questions before I go on to just a little bit of data, other data? Yeah, Janae.
Does BC, doesn't it have its own that's different from the federal?
Yep. Yours
Okay.
is I don't know what the cutoff is, but not everybody gets the rebate. Is it the bottom 60% get the rebate, and it's done through your income tax? And then some of the money is more like a carbon tax than a carbon fee and dividend, but it used to be a pure carbon fee and dividend. It used to be everybody got the same amount. So
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So some of the money does go back into general coffers. Anybody else? Okay, great. So actually well over 60 countries actually have carbon pricing, but at the national level, 52. And this is the current stats for carbon pricing around the world. This is the recent Navius research. You might have also seen it coming out of the Canadian Climate Institute. So there's looking at the range of incremental emissions reductions from climate policies. This is pretty wonky stuff. The variability is really shocking because this all depends in part by how stringent these regulations are. They could be made tighter, and so they could be stronger, and then they interplay with each other. So this is the output-based carbon pricing, or the large emitter that's within the Greenhouse Gas Pollution Pricing Act. And like I said, if it was made strong, it could be like responsible for a huge amount of emissions reductions for Canada. If it was made stronger. Yeah, go ahead, Janae.
So by stronger, are you talking costing more or enforcement?
Less loopholes and costing more. There's a lot of loopholes. And you know, you in Quebec, you in BC have a similar output-based pricing system as well. So your provincial output-based pricing should be made stronger as well. But we've got to do this cooperatively as a country. So yeah, if your provincial heavy emitters pricing was made stronger in tandem with the rest of Canada, that would be fantastic. That could really start to ratchet down emissions. And yeah, and then the cap and trade system in Quebec also is a lot of that's the heavy emitters in there as well. So the cap and trade program, the stronger that gets, the more that's going to keep ratcheting that down as well. And then Canada is about to enact. Canada is going to become the first oil producing country in the world to put a cap on emissions. The legislation was announced in November. It's necessary because the loopholes are so big in the Greenhouse Gas Pollution Pricing Act that our fossil fuel industry is expanding. So we need a cap on emissions, okay? This is basically a cap and trade program just for the fossil fuel industry. okay, for the oil and gas industry. So depending on how strong it is, it could really reduce a lot of emissions as well. What makes this technically very difficult in Canada, and I'm not against it, but one of the reasons we chose to focus in on climate income or carbon fee and dividend was because the federal government in the Confederation in Canada cannot interfere with the energy production of the provinces without getting into constitutional issues. We can only regulate, right? So, so putting a cap on emissions, we knew from lawyers were telling us back in like 2011, 2012, this is going to create problems for the federal government if they go to do this. So expect a big fight as this legislation goes through, because constitutionally it's going to be very difficult. Sorry to tell you that, but yeah, but we're still lobbying for it, and we still want it, but we also know there's issues legally coming, and we're not lawyers. We just know that's going to be a problem. There's methane regulations, and look how variable that is. That's insane. Okay, we don't really focus in on that. And this is the fuel charge. This is the consumer part. This is how much the waste methane capture does. These are the clean fuel regulations. But really, these 3 carbon pricing policies, the fuel charge, the oil and gas cap on oil and gas, and the large emitter systems, are responsible for like about 70 of the 106 megatons of CO2 emissions that will be decreased over the next 7 years. And if we can make them stronger, it would be even more so. We could almost hit our Paris goals. So yeah, really important. That's why we focus in so much on these policies. And yeah, so this is what we have legislated. This is what is developing. This is what is announced less stringent, and this is more stringent. So, but we've got a little bit more to go. So we have to get to what is called 440 megatons or lower. We are currently just over 7 where are we at? Yeah, but you know, this is like over time where we're going. So yeah, we're just around 700, but we've got to get this down. We're not going to make that interim goal. Well, we could, but let's keep trying. We got to keep pushing for it. Okay, and for those of you who want to calculate your rebate, on this slide, you can go do that. So if you get the slides, you can calculate your Canada rebate. And then just as a really quick lesson from En-ROADS, why carbon pricing? I'm just going to do it really fast. Generally we say, okay, what policies do you think Canada should enact to get us off carbon? And people say, plant trees and nature-based solutions, which includes planting trees. I'm like, oh, that's great, but it gets us down about 0.3. That's, you know, and it does barely anything to our fossil fuel use, but it starts to get the greenhouse gas emissions. And people say, okay, what other policies? And they'll say, let's subsidize clean energy. And I go, okay, here we go. And they're like, what? Why didn't anything happen? I was like, because we're not making polluters pay. And the more energy you put into the system, the more energy people are going to consume, right? So let's like make everything, you know, subsidized. Let's electrify transport. Let's electrify industry. Like it barely brings it down. These subsidies cost a huge amount of money and they barely bring down emissions. Now we need them targeted, like especially for rural and remote communities, like they're going to need some help like getting these things, but you know, subsidizing clean energy is going to need to be done in a targeted way, but it barely reduces emissions. What other things that people like to do? Maybe one more. Oh yes, carbon capture and sequestration. It's barely there, okay? You know, we can't keep building new fossil fuel stuff, infrastructure. We have, and we're, you know, we need to, because it's just what we have is just not going to be able to deal with it. What we need to do is make polluters pay. This is maximizing the carbon price. See how much it goes down? This is En-ROADS policy simulator. I encourage everybody to play with it, learn a little bit about it, try to seek out workshops. encourage, we have an on-roads team here at CCL Canada. If you ever want to like get more lessons, there's actually lessons this month that are running. So yeah, it's a really cool thing, or you can go over to MIT and learn about it. So yeah, definitely this is why we focus on carbon pricing. It's very powerful. And that's a very powerful tool to show it. And that's for the whole planet. Canada has our own national policy simulator over at Pembina. And yeah, it's really hard to decarbonize without carbon pricing on the Pembina simulator as well. It's definitely a huge component of it. And this is when they just like took the 2018 policies and ran them into the simulator. And it's a huge component. Okay, so just let somebody in. Okay, so we're done the carbon pricing, and now we're just going to do a little bit about how we work, and then we're going to talk about lobbying. And welcome, Frank. Sorry, we're in the middle of it. You're just going to have to catch on. But any questions about carbon pricing before we continue? There are a lot more slides in here with a lot more details for those who really like details, and there's also laser talks. And really, if you only learn the first 3 laser talks in the conference booklet, you'll be fine. You don't need to know all this stuff. And then you can say, I know lots of proof and I could get it for you if you wanted it. But really, that's not what we're trying to do when we meet our MPs. What we're trying to do is figure out how can we keep moving forward, right? How can we, what can we get? So that's carbon pricing.
Wait, I've got a question.
Oh, yes, for sure, Janae.
I understand that as population, people have a lot of different perspectives on climate. But my question is there a commitment on the government level to reach those 2030 numbers? Like, does everyone agree that we need to do that, but they have different ways to get there, or there isn't agreement? Do you understand what I'm asking?
Yeah. Political stripes aside, and having been doing this for 14 years, and actually having gone to the UNFCCC negotiations since 2017, I believe our government is working really hard. Our federal government is working really hard to meet those targets. I believe there's great work there. The headwinds are twofold. Lack of cooperation within the province, well, it's threefold actually. Lack of cooperation with some of the provinces, and we all know what those provinces are. I live in one of them. You don't. Kathy does. So lack of cooperation from the provinces, they're making it very difficult. And again, the provinces control the energy files. So that makes it very difficult. Obviously the headwinds, it's a partisan issue, even though it shouldn't be, which is too bad. This is a very conservative policy that we put forward. I remember in 2011 showing Michael Chong this policy, and he's like, that's a conservative policy. I'm like, yes. And he actually championed it when he ran for leader of the Conservative Party of Canada. And so did Patrick Brown. They championed this. This is so we're facing headwinds both from recalcitrant premiers. It's become partisan. It's become part of the culture war here in Canada. Whatever, that's okay. And then lastly, there's a huge amount of disinformation out there. And it's very deliberate. So we have to be good messengers. People trust us. People trust their neighbors. That's why us being, well-informed citizens and gently correcting our friends and neighbors and being that spokesperson that people trust will really help combat that disinformation. So yes, there's intention, but we're facing major headwinds. Okay, it was a great question. Does anybody want to add to that before we continue? Okay. So carbon pricing is done. I think you know, I keep telling you again and again, we meet every single month and we go over action sheets and then you figure out what your group needs to do and you row together and you just keep going. And we do these laser talks. They're very brief and they're powerful and we internalize them, like Kathy talking to her doctor about what she's doing. And, and it helps supporters be to prepare to respond in our own words. And, I'm not going to do the laser talks, you know them. What I'd like to do, and we have 5 core activities that we do. Yes, we lobby, but we also do media. We do grassroots presentations, grass tops engagement, and we develop our group. But tonight we'll focus in on lobbying. But we do, over the course of a year, you'll see in our action sheets, we're constantly touching on these things, usually 1 or 2 every month. So if you haven't done so already, everybody should sign up to receive alerts about your MP from openparliament.ca. Every time my MP speaks in the House of Commons, I get an alert, and I have a couple others. So before we get an appointment with our parliamentarian, we research about them, we write a bio, we get to know them. You search their websites, their social media, their Hansard. Definitely go to Open Parliament. I'll do that right now just to show you it. Open Parliament. You can tell I'm there a lot. My browser went right to it. So if I enter my postal code, oh darn, my number 5 does not work. Yeah, there's my MP. I can see all that she's done lately. Okay. And you can do that for your own MP. And then you can get an email whenever she speaks on House debates. Yeah, so it's a really good, and then you can catch them being good. I've been known to do that. She'll say something in the House of Commons and I'll call her office up. I'm like, way to go, Vivian. I know this is good for them to hear when they're doing good. And these so we're all about relationship building, and these constant little touches that we do make a difference. They begin to trust us. It's tough being a politician right now. It's always been tough, but yeah. Okay.
Kathy,
Yeah.
is there an equivalent for senators to openparliament.ca?
No, I don't think so. Let me see. Let me see. Bills. No, it's just MPs. I don't know.
Oh, that's too bad. Okay.
But you can search the Hansard though.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. You can search, like you can go to the parliamentary Hansard and then Google their name inside the Hansard. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
I'll figure it out.
I know you won't. Okay. All right. So as you get this information, be sure to get to know the names of the politicians' staffers as well. Like you should be on first name basis with them after a while. They should know your voice. You'll know their voice, and store that information somewhere, and so that you can share it with your team. And so securing the appointment, I'll show you here on the website. Oh, Melissa's back. Script for securing your appointment is actually on the website. Introduce yourself, express authentic appreciation for something the politician has done lately. If they don't know CCL, just give them a little blurb that makes sense for you. And then if you're lobbying them, say if you're going to come into Ottawa when you're doing that. And then you can just use this. And then what you need to do is keep it short, and you need to select what your lobbying asks will be. So, and be prepared to do it repeatedly. So appreciate this MP and the staff service to your community in Canada. Identify who you are, including that you were Citizens Climate Lobby Canada. And most of you will just be constituents. That's really powerful. Because MPs are supposed to meet with their constituents. And I'm so sad, Kathy, that yours won't. That's really sad. And state briefly you'd like to discuss with them. The more focused you are, the better. So usually we pick something from the lobbying asks, and you'll see that in a moment. So, but how do we prepare? So we're not going there well, sometimes we do need to teach them a little, but mostly we want to figure out where are the roadblocks? How can we move forward together? How can we help this, our parliamentarians, move forward on the climate issue? So we have discovered, and we've been using this for the past 6, almost 7 years now, motivational interviewing. And what it is a person-centered interviewing style for eliciting behavior change by helping people explore, find common ground, and overcome obstacles and move forward together. This works really well for relationships, whether it be with your, anybody in your life, child, friend, significant other. I don't know. Don't you just love it on a Friday night when your significant other wants to talk about finances and you don't? Right before bedtime or something? No, no, we're not allowed to do that in my house. So he actually has to get permission for me to start a topic that, that are pretty tenuous. And that's the same idea here. So first you need to get permission to start the topic. If you've got a lobbying appointment, you got that permission to start that topic. If you meet your MP at a social event or at a grocery store, don't start lobbying them right away. Just if you really must say, oh, I really just gotta ask you one little question. I'm so sorry. And if it's too much, just tell me to stop. But can I ask you this? Get that permission. Otherwise, you're just going to be meeting a blank wall. So you've got the permission to start the topic. And then what you want to do is start asking them questions on how to proceed. So you want to ask how, who, what, when, or where questions like who can you work with across the aisle to make this happen? What committee will this go to? When will it go to committee? When do you think it will be second reading? Where will, this happen? Or how can we make this happen faster? Or how can we help you? Is a great question. Or, why did, we like to avoid why questions because politicians can really go on a tangent on a why question. But if you really have a good why question, don't be shy to use it. But just, I warn you that why questions can elicit bigger answers sometimes than that you're hoping for. But we did ask a why question once, and it was the best why question I ever saw answered. We asked a conservative politician, why was he meeting with us? Like what? And he told us, and it was awesome. And same, we got this meeting with the office of Fatal Burrell, who was second in command at the European Union. And we asked them, why are you meeting with us? And they were like, you guys are very focused and we like what you're doing. And so whatever. I am going off. But anyways, you want to design questions to get the other person talking, and they should be doing most of the talking. Now, I want to take a moment just to back up a bit. So you get them talking, and then all of a sudden they're going to ask you to do something that is way too complex. Be careful of MPs asking you to take on a big project. One of the ones they often ask us to do is run national parliamentary petitions. Those are a huge amount of energy for our organization. There's other things. It's maybe too much research. But if your parliament asks your group to do something that is complex project that goes beyond the 5 levers of political will, or requires our help or other groups to be successful, before you say yes or no, join the CCL Canada calls or talk to us and get feedback first before you start a project. Because you really don't want to start a project that takes 10, 20, 30 hours. Mostly they should be asking you for little bits of information or giving you really good advice. And we've had really great advice. We had an MP say, you guys should make a cartoon about carbon fee and dividend. Or that's a good idea. And we did. And it was very popular. But know that sometimes they're going to might ask you to do something that's a little too big. So just be careful of that. But going back, these are our lobbying asks. And what we're going to be doing shortly is role-playing a meeting. Okay. These are the lobbying asks this year. Remember, you only pick the one you think, one or two that you think is most suitable for your member of parliament. We want to follow the European Union's lead in implementing carbon border adjustment mechanisms. And to prepare for CBAMs, our policies must be harmonized in terms of price of carbon pollution coverage, GHG emissions and sources of emissions, and transparency. We want our government to combat disinformation about climate change and support Bill C-372, an act respecting fossil fuel advertising. In the provinces in which the fuel charge component of the Greenhouse Gas Pollution Pricing Act applies, so that's like the consumer price, deploy the pre-designated portion of the revenues from the fuel charge that is designated for small and medium-sized businesses, municipalities, universities, schools, and hospitals, and Indigenous communities at a faster rate and in a more transparent manner, because they're not deploying it, and this is going to be an Achilles heel for them. We are starting to call natural gas fossil gas. We used to call it methane powered, but we're going to call it fossil gas going forward. I think that's the nomenclature for Europe. So we want our government to move fossil gas powered electricity out of the output-based pricing system, so that's the heavy emitters, and into the fuel charge component of the Greenhouse Gas Pollution Pricing Act, and enact the new clean electricity regulations by this summer, and ensure that they effectively remove fossil fuels from Canada's electricity grid by 2035. And ensure that the final regulations for the cap on greenhouse gas emissions from the oil and gas sector are in place by the end of 2024 and do not include escape hatches like offsets or the decarbonization fund. And we also want them to support Bill S-243, the Climate Aligned Finance Act. If you come to the conference, we're going to be covering all of this. If you lobby, you're going to pick one or two of these and you're going to go study them, and you're going to spend 1 or 2 hours wrapping your head around it, and then sit down with your group for an hour and come up with, like, your plan of, you're going to have 3 hours to prepare for a meeting. You have 5 minutes to prepare for a meeting right now. Okay. So we're going to mock up a meeting. So these are the rules in a meeting. There's always a lead. There's the liaison. That's the person that makes the appointment. There's a person that does the appreciation. The first thing we like to do is appreciate something the MP has done lately. Really important to also have a time monitor, note taker. Note takers should be a more experienced person, and they should be capturing what the MP is saying as much as possible. And then everybody should participate in the discussion, and a lot of that will be motivational interviewing questions. Occasionally, MPs don't know the issue. Like, so for example, 2 years ago, we discussed sevoflurane and desflurane, this like component, whatever. It took like 10 minutes to actually teach the MPs about that. So sometimes you actually have to teach them about something. Like maybe they won't know about the Fossil Fuel Advertising Act, and you're going to have to talk to them for a bit about it. But for the most part, it's mostly trying to ask them questions and letting them ask questions, making sure it's clear, what you're asking for and how you can move forward together. Particularly, you have the person who does the asking, the actual ask that you come to ask them for. Like, we're really concerned about disinformation and false advertising, and just like we've done for tobacco and various other pharmaceuticals in Canada, we would like for the Canadian government to enact a fossil fuel advertising act. Somebody has to make that ask, that very specific ask, to get the discussion going. A deliverer is somebody who brings if you have any petitions or cards to give them. And then there's the follow-up person, and make sure you have somebody's there with their camera to take a picture. And occasionally you can have an observer who's watching the body language, and it's cool. Like sometimes you can see like the aide taking lots of notes and lots of great energy going between the MP and their assistant, or sometimes you see them playing on their phone, not paying attention to you at all. So like, so to have somebody there watching what's going on. So everybody, has rules. And yeah, I mean, what you want to do is encourage everybody to take part. And lastly, like any meeting, there's a beginning, a middle, and an end. We won't get to the end, but I would like to just, when we mock play our meeting, you begin with Thanks for meeting us with today. How much time do we have? You introduce yourselves and then appreciate something that the MP has done lately. And, you know, today we're going to talk about we would like to talk to you about the fossil fuel advertising act, you know, like, or whatever one you're going to choose. And then, so first we need to choose what you're going to ask for, and then we're going to come up with 2 or 3 motivational interviewing questions for that. So let's first pick what we're going to lobby for. I do not suggest CBAMs because that was a total failure 2 weeks ago. Don't do that one. Most people don't know how to lobby for that one. So pick one that you think you're really comfortable with. We had a really good one last week with the C372, the Enact Respecting Fossil Fuel Advertising, but you can pick anyone. These are pretty wonky things, but whatever one you think you can handle. What do you think? I'm going to suggest number 2. It is the easiest to role play for newbies. Is that okay with everybody? Any objections? Okay, there's no objections. So now we want to design some motivational interviewing questions. So what sort of motivational interviewing questions could you ask? Like, so you're just meeting an MP, you don't know how much they know about about this. So what sort of motivational interviewing questions would you ask?
Maybe, do you think there's too much disinformation about climate change?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a yes or no question. That was a really good question. So you just get a yes or no answer. What's a way of making it into a more open-ended question, Keith? Just begin with a what or where, or, you know, what are your thoughts on?
Yeah, what are your thoughts on the amount of disinformation about climate change?
Yeah, so that's so that's more open-ended. So that was a great question that you had, like, because you want to get where they're at in their own mind with this whole disinformation issue that we have. And did anybody see Maria Reza, what she did today at Harvard? Maria Reza, Nobel Prize winner. Oh, she said the fascists are coming, and she's warning that the disinformation on social media is an absolute threat. This was in her commencement speech. So what are your thoughts on disinformation? Great question. Okay, so that's a great question. What other questions? Just shout them out. Don't worry about being wrong or sounding silly. I mean, we're brainstorming and there's no wrong answers when you're brainstorming. You're just trying to get your ideas out there.
A very similar question, but phrased slightly different, I think would be what do you believe would be the most effective way to address the challenges around disinformation on climate change and the contribution of fossil fuel?
That's really good. Okay, that's great. Hold on to that question, write it down. Keith, you're going to ask the first question, so write your question down. Melissa, you're going to ask the second question. You write that question down, please. Anybody else want to ask a question as we role play this? It's only at first reading right now. So often when we're following bills, like I'm just giving you a hint now, often when we're following bills, we're trying to ask, when do you think it will go to second reading? Okay, so so that's a pretty good question. Or yeah, so like, but anyways, I was just wanting to give you a hint, because usually when we're following bills, we're trying to figure out where they are on the legislative, trajectory. But anybody else have a question?
We also ask about who else can we approach to move this issue forward? Like, who else can we talk to?
Yes, exactly. Sometimes they'll tell you who the big champions are. Absolutely. That's how come we knew Michael Chong was a great champion and we went right to him for carbon pricing. Actually, the who question, who else would be championing this? Because sometimes they know their colleagues better. So Kathy, you're going to ask that as the third question. Okay, so Keith, you're going to go question number 1. With Melissa, question number 2, Kathy, question number 3. Mary Blake, you're going to ask how much time we have when we do our introductions.
I can do that.
And Renee, you're going to be the appreciator. You're going to appreciate me for something. So maybe I can be your MP, Mona Fortier, and you can appreciate something I've done lately. Is that okay? Or are you putting your kid to bed? Or are you rocking him? Yep. Okay. She's good. Okay. So back to what the meeting looks like. We've got our roles. So, oh, Mary Blake, will you be the lead?
Yeah, I can be the
Okay.
lead.
Okay, so we're gonna mock a meeting. Mary Blake's gonna open up. Thanks for meeting us with today. How much time do we have? Everybody's gonna do their intros. Renee, when the intro comes to you, you're gonna ask how you're gonna appreciate something. And then and Mary Blake, you do the ask too.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to turn this off. Stop sharing. So everybody's got it. I'm going to start a meeting. Mary Blake's going to start it. And then we can all introduce ourselves. And then Mary Blake's going to do the ask. And then you're going to ask the 3 questions. Okay. All right. Here we go. And know that I do not like role playing. So if you're feeling uncomfortable, I'm still uncomfortable doing it after 14 years. Okay, here we go. All right. All right, welcome. Come on in. Thanks for meeting with me today.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having us. Merci de nous avoir accueillis. We are from Citizens Climate Lobby. Maybe we'll just go around and very quickly say our names. So my name is Mary Blake. I'm from London. Keith, you want to go?
Keith McNeil, I'm from Clearwater, British Columbia.
And Renee?
I'm Renee Labras from Ottawa Vanier, and this is where I'm doing my appreciation, correct? Sorry.
Sure, go for it.
Is that appropriate?
Yeah,
Yeah, that's appropriate. Yeah.
Okay,
Also, the intros are usually a little less rushed, but yeah.
Okay, and I'm not sure how to address the MP Honorable Mona Forte. We want to thank you very much for meeting with us today, and thank you for speaking to Francophone issues in the House of Commons and representing Ottawa Vanier with remembering our like diverse and rich history. I see that recently you've been honoring a retired, I would be more prepared than this, but retiring community member. So thank you very much for honoring them in our for us.
And Kathy, you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, and I'm Kathy Page. I'm from out west. I'm from Calgary in Alberta.
And Melissa?
Hi, my name is Melissa Paris-Amour, and I'm from Montreal, Quebec.
So again, thank you so much for having us. So as we had mentioned in our email, oh yes, of course. How much time do we have?
15 minutes.
This is why we usually designate somebody to be the timekeeper, and that's the whole thing they do. Yeah, as we had mentioned in our email, we're here to talk about the Bill C-372, an act respecting fossil fuel advertising, and we hope that you will support this bill. So we had a few questions for you.
Yeah, so what do you think about the amount of disinformation regarding climate change that's out there?
It's alarming, and it's making our job very difficult. We should be moving faster, and we're not. So thank you for bringing this to my attention.
And how do you believe we can all work together to most effectively address the issue and, like you're saying, move faster on this?
You mean the disinformation issue?
The disinformation issue, yes.
Yes. Well, things need to proceed through the House of Commons, and we need to have things go to committees, and we need to get buy-in. We need to, we need to make sure that if we're going to do something like this, we have to be prepared for the pushback. We want to know that a parade has already started. Politicians generally don't like to lead parades. They like to follow them and then run to the front. So when the time comes, so we need to see some political will for it. So yes, it's really important that we take a good hard look at this bill and figure out how to word it and how to build the political will for it. We're up against big forces, so but working together, there's way more of us than them. I know we can prevail. Go
So is
ahead.
it my?
Yep.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you for sharing your thoughts on that. It sounds like there's lots of challenges and we need to find some champions. And so who can we approach to champion this bill and maybe move it forward?
Well, definitely Charlie Angus. He's like the MP that's sponsoring this bill, and he's like just absolutely fearless in challenging the fossil fuel committee. I I think speaking to anybody on the natural resources committee, because that's where a lot of the fossil fuel concerned politicians tend to be. They can probably provide you with some great insight. Same with anybody on the Envy committee. Let me see. I think Nathaniel Erskine Smith would also be fearless in sparring with the fossil fuel companies, because really they've got quite the machine out there that goes after politicians when they push up against them. So those are great questions.
And
Okay.
do you have a sense of when this bill might go to second reading?
There needs to be more pushing. Private members' bills very rarely make it to the Senate. So we need more political will for it. So definitely, get those paper petitions into the House of Commons to be read. Try to unite with other environmental groups to come up with some sort of like social media push day or something so that we feel it in the House of Commons. Ask MP Angus his thoughts as well. So yeah, it's private members' bills don't move all that fast unless we feel the heat. You got to put our feet to the fire. So please light that fire.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us today.
Oh, that was wonderful. Let's take a picture. No. Okay, this was great. Okay. All right. And we don't normally get to the end. Okay, but I want to hear your thoughts. How did this go? How did it feel? This one I'm actually going to share with people. Sorry. I'm feeding you. I'm pretty Keith, go ahead. It looks like you want to say something.
Well, I was just going to comment that we ask how long the meeting should last, but quite often I've had the experience where we get to the 20 minutes or 15 minutes and, oh, let's keep a little longer. And yeah, and it drags on and on. And yeah, it doesn't drag. It gets more and more productive. And, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good point. Anyone else?
I thought it's really nice that everyone's included in, like, even though obviously Mary Blake and other people had the expertise, it's nice that there's a role for everyone so you can feel like empowered and go, oh, maybe next time I can do a little bit more. So I think it's it's very like well thought out and well structured. So kudos.
You're a teacher and you totally caught up on that.
Yeah, and if anyone's nervous about lobbying for the first time, like the first time I lobbied, my job was constituent. Like my whole responsibility was to show up and say, my name is Mary Blake and I live in London North Center. And then other people did the harder talking. Although think I moved on pretty quickly from there, but
Yes, constituent is a very important role. Anyone else?
Well, I liked how you coached us on those motivational questions and to not just get into the yes, no things, because it didn't take, like with a little bit more thought, you could get someone talking more. And I think that's really important to remember.
Yeah, precisely. You know, we really want the listening is the most important part. I know we really want to talk and but the listening is super important, and you can talk afterwards. Like when you debrief, there's a lot of time to talk this through and a lot of time to talk, and you'll probably talk yourself out before as well preparing. So
Mhm.
yeah.
I think it'll also be important that, you know, we can have our prepared questions, but we're also going to have to listen and maybe modify a little bit on the fly so we don't just sound like we have this scripted little question and we're little robots or something.
Yeah, it's very improvisational. So anybody who's ever played jazz or done drama or danced, improvisation, is definitely improvise. It's got to be natural, and it will be. You know, you're trying to beginning with the end in mind. Your whole goal is to get that second meeting, to get that third meeting, get that fourth meeting, develop the relationship. You're not gonna get a Nobel Prize winning policy in one meeting.
Yeah. You know, this reminds me of, I used to do regulatory work way back in the 80s. And we used to go to hearings, and my manager was, you know, we were all brand new. And he said, just remember, they put their socks on one at a time too. Like, we're all just people, we're having a conversation. Like, just lighten up a bit.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know, and they're for the most part, most MPs are so glad to hear from their constituents. And they also really like us because we're not there to give them a hard time. We're there to help them, and they'll sense that. So really, there's a lot of love and community what we bring with our work. So it's really beautiful, actually, when you do this work.
A little bit off topic, but Melissa's comment about meeting with Justin Trudeau made me think, well, Justin might not be around the next election. And do we know what Mark Carney thinks about carbon taxes and carbon fee and dividends?
Oh, he's fine. So
Mhm.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I can't think that far in advance.
Okay, sorry.
Okay. But we can have a beer after all the lobbying and discuss it.
Okay.
Okay. Are you staying till the Wednesday, Keith?
Yeah. I've got somebody Wednesday morning, and then my flight isn't till Wednesday evening. So, and I'm going to meet my nephew or great nephew.
No.
So
I'm in town till I'm on the Wednesday. And so Mary Blake, what time do you leave Wednesday?
I haven't booked my train yet. Would it be helpful if I stay for the meeting Keith set up?
Yeah. What do you think, Keith? Do you want us? Do you want us
sure.
meeting with you?
Oh yeah, sure.
Okay, cool. I love going to Parliament Hill.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is wrapping up. Welcome back, Frank. So I think we've got everything. If you haven't registered, be sure to register for the conference. It's going to be a blast. Yeah, and Senator Rosa Galvez and the Honorable Catherine McKenna are speaking at our conference. They love us. They really love us. And we have Chris Reagan from the Ecofiscal / Max Bell School of Policy at McGill. And we have Cape working with us. We have some doctors and nurses who will be lobbying with us. It's going to be amazing. And everybody who's supposed to be there will be there, and it's going to just be perfect. Thank you.
It's going to be good.
It's going to be good. You're welcome to go now, but I'll see most of you in Ottawa And Frank, you keep coming in and out. I can stay, maybe Mary Blake and I will stay for a few minutes and see if you have any questions before we sign off, but everybody else,
Okay.
bye,
Thank
thank you,
you.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Ellie. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
ciao.
I may have Katie just a last quick question, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I saw the list of all the upcoming regulations in Canada regarding climate, and I'm slightly embarrassed that I don't know more about them. And
Oh,
was
that's
just
not,
yeah.
don't need to be embarrassed.
I'm like, wow, I should know more. But just do CCL do like monthly catch up, or I know there's the newsletter that we receive, but just other resources out there to better get up to speed on what are the different climate related regulations that are in Parliament and at what stage they're at.
Well, you can read through the laser talks. We do
Yeah.
meet every single month. Melissa, if you want to get on our direct mailing list to be invited to our monthly calls, and just to see what we're doing and what we're up to, I've put my email in the chat, and just if you want to shoot me an email, I can put you on that email list. Do we have, yeah, every single month you get educated about what's going on, and we're mostly focused on fossil fuels, okay? Like, so if there's stuff happening with food or stuff happening,
Okay.
electric vehicles and stuff like that, that's not what we do. We're focused on getting money away from fossil fuels and like pushing
Yeah.
fossil fuels out
Yeah.
of the system. So you will be constantly updated on the fossil fuel file if you belong
Okay.
to this list.
Okay, so in these monthly call, we go through like if there's any advancement on one of these regulation, we talk about it, and okay, great. Perfect.
But not quite like that. Sometimes that'll happen. We're just, especially as we're heading into summer, you're going to be like, what are they doing? We're actually relaxing in the summer. And then starting in September,
That's
we'll start picking up the education again. Like, so
that's fair.
yeah.
That's fair.
Okay. I just didn't want to think like we become this resource, and then all of a sudden you see we're relaxing a little bit, a lot. We'll relax a lot in July and August.
No, that's fine. I'm actually gonna have lunch with James Murphy, who's kind of leading my group in Montreal, and we're gonna plan the next few months. He did tell me that during summer it's a bit more quiet, but that's good because that's gonna give me a bit time to get up to speed with everything and educate myself a little bit more, and then after hopefully I'll be able to be of more support. But thank you very much for this training and your time.
Toi aussi. Merci beaucoup.
Oui, merci beaucoup.
Okay. Have a nice evening.
You too. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.